Well, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us here on a Monday morning. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, your tour guide to the ag commodities. Always a treat to visit with you about our ag commodity trade. I want to welcome aboard Brian Hoops. He's with Midwest Market Solutions, and he is based in Springfield, Missouri. He joins us right now to talk about what could be driving the market here this morning. Brian, I looked at the wire before I came down to the studio here. I did not see any overnight flash export sales again. How many days is that now without any sale?
Yeah, unfortunately, Marlon, we are just continuing a disappointing trend that we don't have any of these export sales. December 19th was the last time we had a private sale announcement. So it's been quite a stretch in here. I think it does tell us that China, or the unknown destination that had purchased a tremendous amount of soybeans in November and December, was doing that as a hedge, is what we suspected, trying to prevent higher prices and getting in trouble with not having enough product secured. Tells us now that they're pretty confident with what they have on the books already. And as prices are moving lower in here on the idea that South American supplies are going to be large, that they are going to be buyers at cheaper prices and probably cancel a lot of those purchases that were made in that November-December timeframe.
Well, Suzanne mentioned that we had some issues, let's say issues overnight in the Sunday night Globex trade. And let's go ahead and review our prices from overnight just to see what she was talking about. Let's go to the corn board here and take a look. First, on the corn futures overnight, we had the March going a penny lower at 4.59 3/4. So it was very quiet. I mean, we had not even quite a three. Well, I guess we did have a 3-cent trading range overnight, and that was about it. But we ended up a penny lower. December was down 1 3/4 at 4.92 1/4. Now, in soybeans overnight, here you had the March contract finishing 9.5 cents lower at 12.46 1/2. That was quite a bit of pressure there. We ended up roughly about a penny from our low of the overnight trade. And you consider that we dropped about 15 cents or 14 cents off of our overnight high. That was a little concerning. November finished down a nickel. Ooh, look at this, Brian, 12.03 1/2. On that November contract. Boy, I tell you what, if they have any follow through at all today, we could be looking at 11 on the handle.
Yeah, you're right, Marlon. We may get to that 11 before we see any type of a bounce here, or just at least test the $12 mark. There's not much incentive to see a bounce or any type of a rally in the soybeans at this point in time. You have a report coming out on Friday from the government that'll give us some pretty big numbers here, but is that going to give us a little bit of short covering going into the report? I think it's certainly possible. A lot of private analysts are lowering their estimates for South American production, particularly Brazil, down below where the USDA is. They're at 160 in their last report. Privates are coming in 149, 152, so it could easily see the USDA drop their yield estimate maybe to 155. But leaving Argentina alone, it's still going to produce a record crop by maybe 14, 15 million metric tons compared to last year's record. So we're going to have more supplies coming at us. It's just kind of a question of how much rains we get and how stable the Brazilian soybean crop is. But it does certainly look to be larger, and that's going to limit our upside potential here until we get into some adverse weather. Maybe that's going to be in our growing season.
And speaking of that, let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla in the room, and that is the weather impacting the plains right now. March Chicago wheat finished 14 lower last night, all the way down to 602. Got as low as 601 1/4. Your new crop July was down 13 cents, finishing at 622. And then you have Kansas City wheat. It dropped 11 cents overnight on the March at 617. July was down a dime at 625 1/4. And Minneapolis wheat on the March contract was down 6 1/4 at 705 3/4. Brian, this big winter storm moving out into the plains, I know it's the off season here, but one has to wonder how beneficial all that moisture is going to be for the upcoming wheat crop for this year. Is that why they're taking premium out of the market here?
Yeah, you get a lot of snow that's forecast. It's kind of moved a little bit north compared to Friday's forecast. So Oklahoma is going to miss a lot of it. Down here in Springfield, we're going to miss a lot of it. It's going to hit mostly Kansas and northern Missouri. So it's a real heart of the winter wheat belt. Some moisture's coming in, and that's also going to act as an insulation blanket against that cold temperatures that are coming in by the end of the week. So it's not only moisture, but it's protection against that crop, against any winter kill. So it's kind of a double whammy as far as news goes.
Okay, and then let's look at cotton this morning, see how it fared. And right now on the cotton board, that March contract is down 37 points at 79.82. So bearishness abounds in the overnight trade. We'll come back and we'll talk with Brian about our livestock trade. Boy, they could be impacted by the winter storm, and we'll discuss right after this. Now let's go back to Brian Hoops, and we'll talk about this winter weather scenario that's bearing down on the heartland of the country. That's where the core of cattle production is, Brian. And my thoughts and prayers go out to everybody out there that has livestock and feedlots out there. It is so hard to shelter animals when you have just dire conditions like this. I had heard updates overnight that some areas there in Kansas, Nebraska could get up to nearly a foot of snow and 60 to 65 mile an hour winds on top of that. Now, I know from experience, if you get a foot of snow and you get that kind of wind behind it, you're probably looking at 5-6 foot drifts, pretty common out there. That's not great for feedlot country.
That's really the issue. You know, the snow is one thing, but when you get all the winds on top of it, blizzard-like conditions, it makes everything a chore, including keeping the animals safe and healthy, but also getting feed out to them. It's just a mess. Our office in Yankton, South Dakota is reporting 6 inches of snow on the ground already there. So it's probably coming in a little quicker than what some of the forecast had imagined. So next couple of days is going to be very tough for cattle producers. There's going to be virtually no cash trade, no movement of cattle, hardly whatsoever. You may see even some kill schedules being disrupted in parts of Nebraska where this storm is coming. The plants may shut down or at least slow their kills or cut 1 or 2 kills. Packers probably willing to do that. We've been hearing talk that they were going to cut Saturday kills anyway to try and prop up their box beef margins. Their margins are negative, about $145, $150 a head. So they don't have a lot of incentive to push these animals through very quickly, especially with this weather coming in. But, you know, usually this is supportive for the futures market. We kind of dropped on Friday, even though we had steady to higher cash trade, had this snowstorm coming in. I think the trade is kind of getting a sense that the cash in the next week to 2 weeks could be under some pressure as we see bigger supplies coming at this market and we have those negative margins to work with.
But in the short term, couldn't that really run up the cash market? I mean, I have a hard time picturing those cattle trucks making it through the snowy and icy roads out there for a few days.
You're right. I think they will, but I also think these packers are just going to cut their kills and close some plants probably to kind of compensate for that instead of trying to pay up for this cash and fight through everything. They may just cut some kills in an effort to prop up their box beef.
All right, well, let's take a look at where we finished up on Friday. Then this will be our baseline for today. February live cattle closed at 170.57 last Friday. They were down 55 cents at that time. Feeders on the March contract were at 224.15. They were down $1.50 as we wrapped up last week. And then on lean hogs, we had February 95 higher. All the other months were over $1 higher. So we'll see if they can hang on to that. That nearby February finished right at $70 on the nose last Friday. Okay, Brian, thank you for the help this morning and helping analyze the markets. Good to visit with you again. Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions. He's based in Springfield, Missouri.